So I've talked a lot about using Google Earth and Google Earth Pro in teaching and learning about the American Civil War. So I thought I'd today do a little bit about doing a mashup of using Google Earth and some of the features in Google Earth, along with looking at some primary sources and then mashing them all together and seeing how we can convert all of them into making a pretty cool lesson and see how kids can tie everything all together. So here we are at Gettysburg, looking at the area of Pickett's charge. So here's the Virginia Monument. Here's the copse of trees on the right hand side. If I zoom in a bit, you can see the Virginia Monument. You can see copse of trees. And if I want to measure that distance, I simply go up and grab my ruler. I'm going to set it to a line, and we'll just shoot a straight line from the Virginia Monument to the copse of trees, and we see it's just shy of a mile. And you can have the kids do the math if you want and say, hey, how many yards is that, or how many feet is that, in their own. It's just like 0.78 of a mile, but you could have them do the math if you'd like. You could also say, well, what if they didn't walk in a straight line? You can go to a path, and you could say, well, they marched straight out first to about here, and then they went this direction, and then they went to the copse of trees. Okay, so again, just a little bit more about 0.02 of a mile more, but you can see that just by taking a different route, the soldiers would have gone a little bit different direction. You can say if they were over here near the North Carolina Monument, how far was that? Again, right around that 0.7 of a mile mark from the Confederate line to the point where they were trying to meet the Union line here at the copse of trees. So let's go back and do a path that goes kind of this way, and we'll go to the copse of trees. Okay. So now what you can actually do with these paths, I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to call it Pickett's Charge. Okay, so now I have this Pickett's Charge line over here. I can look at this and I can show the elevation profile. So now it actually shows me the elevation that the soldiers would have gone. So you can see as soon as they step off, they go down. They go from 573 feet above seawater down to 558, and then they climb up again. So there's times where the soldiers said that they actually thought they disappeared, and the Union soldiers had said they were hard to see. So you can see they climb back up to the level where they were, even with where they started. So they start off, they go down, then they come back up and level off, and then they go back down again. Right here, before they reach the Emmitsburg Road, they go back down another 10 feet or so. And this is modern. It might have been a little bit more back in the 1860s, with modern farming and things like that. They go back up, and then here at the Emmitsburg Road, 569 feet above sea level, and climbing all the way up to almost 600 feet at the copse of trees, 600 feet above sea level at the copse of trees. So this is just another way that you can look at and use geography to talk about the Battle of Gettysburg, or any Civil War battle, or any battle at all. And you can use and draw these lines and see where the soldiers walked up and down. It wasn't just a flat football field kind of thing. It was, it was terrain that went up and down and back and forth, so that this had an impact on the way that the soldiers would have walked toward the copse of trees. So they were trying to find the best way to get there. Now, one of the primary sources of the Battle of Gettysburg that's really cool to look at is the Elliott map, and I've talked about using the Elliott map before, and it shows all of the locations of where soldiers were buried on the battlefield. So if I go out here, and this is available on the Library of Congress website, and if I zoom in, I can see the cemetery. I can see different parts there's the Taneytown Road. Here's the Emmitsburg Road coming out here. It shows the different farms. It shows all of the graves in this side of the road were from deaths in hospitals. So all the ones back in the Spangler farm, the Bushman Farm, and that sort of thing were all taken, and these graves were from the field hospitals. Now here you can see an explanation of the scale of it. And so the ones that look like the picket fence, if you will, or a plus, are Union graves. Just the vertical lines are Confederate graves. The apostrophes are dead horses or commas, depending on when you want to look at it. It shows the breastworks. It shows lunettes, and lunettes are breastworks for artillery. Lunettes are areas that would have been built up in front of cannon to protect them. And then we also have rifle pits. So if I scroll back out here, you can see all over the map that, like, here's the Trossel Farm. These are dead horses. So if you were to go and look at some of the famous photographs of the Trossel Farm, you see all the dead horses, and there's the barn, and there's famous photographs that show all of these dead horses around the Trossel Barn. But what I want to focus on here, since we were talking about the Pickett's charge a little bit ago, is the area right here in the battlefield. And if you were looking at this and you were going to say, wow, why are there all these Confederate graves right here leading up to the Emmitsburg Road? And why are there all these graves, Union graves, right here? And, here was what General Armistead was killed. Right here is about the copse of trees, right about in this area right here. You can also see, more Confederate graves. There's some Union ones that would have gone out. But the Union breastworks are along this line. So you can see, and here's General Meade's headquarters. And again, there's a lot of famous photographs that show the dead horses around the widowed Leicester's home. So it's a neat way to come in and start talking about and then looking at and saying, okay, now why were there all of these? Well, one of the interesting things about it is you can go back and you can look at the area around this and say what happened. So let's go back to Google Earth. So we're talking about this area right here. I'm just going to reset a little bit. And if I go down to Street View, part of the problem that the soldiers faced when they were marching and trying to get from, there's my starting point, you can see my path, right, is they ran into this fence. So they all got bottlenecked right here on the fence. And as they got closer and closer to the Union line, right here's their goal, they had to cross two fences right here along the Emmitsburg Road. And that was actually here during the battle. A similar fence was here, and there's reports of finding hundreds, if not, of bullet holes in some fence rails. And the number of shots that were fired as the soldiers tried to knock them down and or climb over the fence. So I'm going to just do a quick reset one more time so I can get oriented to where we are. Now, one of the cool things that you can do is take this and then combine it with that Elliott burial map. So you see this little V right here. And you see the V, like the V that's formed right here, that little triangle, if you will, triangular shape. This point right here can be matched to the Elliott map, and that's right here. So this point right here, where the Taneytown Road meets the Emmitsburg Road, so the Taneytown Road is here, and the Emmitsburg Road is there, is that point right there. So we can overlay these photos into Google Earth, or into a mashup to try to get an idea what that might look like. All right, so now I'm in. What I did was I took a screenshot of the Elliott map, and I took a screenshot from Google Earth showing the point at which the Taneytown Road meets the Emmitsburg Road, and showing the area of Pickett's charge. So you can see in the center, far left, is the Virginia Monument, and then straight across 0.77 or 78 tenths of a mile is the copse of trees. And then I've taken the same screenshot of the Elliott map. So I'll just make that a little bit bigger so you can see that. Again, Canva's free, so it's nice and easy to use. Now, what I want to do is I want to try to line up this point right in where the Taneytown Road meets the Emmitsburg Road with the Google Earth map. So I need to come up to the transparency. I'm going to crank it down a little bit, and I'm going to note my spot there. and I see it is right there. So I'm going to put that on there. And now what I can do is I can actually overlay, and I can start to see. And if I zoom in, I can start to see where these burials would have taken place. So now if I zoom in on my map, I can see the actual roads where they travel. I'm lining up with the Taneytown Road. I'm lining up with I can see that my point, if I increase my opacity a little bit, there's my point right there. I'm off just a little wee bit, so I'm going to move it just a little wee bit. All right, so now my opacity is good, so I can see that it matches the road. So now if I'm coming out here, whoops, if I scroll down a little bit and I look, all these graves are right here along the Emmitsburg Road in the modern version. So now I can go and sort of get a better understanding of what it looks like and why and where those took place in a modern view. So even you can see that some of these graves have been buried over, or after they're reinterred, is now in an area of development. So you can see this is an area of development. These are restaurants and things like that right here along the Emmitsburg Road. But you can use this tool. You can use just Canva. This is simple Canva to blur these in and out and kind of get an idea and let your students see where the burials would have taken place along the Emmitsburg Road and along the Taneytown Road where the horses were for General Meade's headquarters. So here's another cool thing that you can do, or another example of how you can do this. So again, I'm back on the Elliott map, and I talked about going to the Trossel farm. So if I go down here, I can see the Abraham Trossel farm. And out here's the Emmitsburg Road. Here's the Sherfy Peach Orchard. So if you come out the Emmitsburg Road past, this is where we were just talking about the copse of trees, and there's Meade's headquarters. So this is for reference. If you continue down and there's the Abraham Trossel farm, and you can see, remember, all these semicolons or commas are dead horses. So you can do that sort of mashup. And if I'm on Google Earth, here's the area that it looks like on Google Earth. There's the Trossel farm. There's the Emmitsburg Road there, and I still have my line from earlier, my path that I took, where the soldiers would have gone from their position here along Cemetery Ridge, right along where it says Hancock Avenue, essentially, and marched out toward the Sherfy Peach Orchard and the Emmitsburg Road. So you can see the Peach Orchard, and you can see the Emmitsburg Road gone through the Trossel farm and that sort of thing. So lots of dead horses there. So if I go back to this, I can see again the dead horses. If I go here's an actual photograph taken shortly after the battle. You can see the Trossel barn. There's the hole in a cannonball hole in the photo. You can see again all the dead horses. One cool thing I want you to do, though, is take note of this rock here. See, it's got a little notch in it, like a little V notch in that one. And again, here are the dead horses. So if I go back out here to Google Earth, I grab my street view and I go drop in down here. I'm a little close. Let me go right down here. And I'm going to turn around. And you can see right there behind the cannon is that rock with the notch in it that I showed you in the other picture. And there's the hole. You can see the hole in the barn underneath the two diamonds shaped. You can see the cannon shell hole, but that's the same rock that was there, that little V-shaped one. So now if I take that and I put it into Canva, I can do the same thing. So I take my image here and I've just overlaid screenshots. So here's my Google Earth screenshot, and then I can come back and I can zoom in on this a little bit more. See, I got the buildings lined up. So there's the Trossel farm. There's the Trossel farm there. There's Emmitsburg Road. So if I push that back in. I'll make it go all the way one. You can see the lane that used to be there originally. Now it's a road. It's U.S. Avenue right there. But you can see that where all the horses were right there again in the yard of the Trossel farm. So it's a neat way to be able to blend and use primary sources and modern tools to let kids kind of explore areas and different ways. So if you have any questions, let me know.